All right, welcome everybody to class 3 of painting rocks and water, the power of brushwork. And today we are going to be doing glazing. I'll do a quick demonstration about mixing browns using my limited palette. And then also I will be finishing or working on the painting that I did as the wipe away, kind of showing if it's not like a refined wipe away that I'm just gonna, leave it, which doesn't happen very often. Usually the wipe away is kind of my underpainting. It's just a great way to get my drawing, my design, and my values all established very quickly. So today I will build that up to the next stage just to show you guys how we do that. So today will be a lot of demonstrating. I did see you guys turned in a lot of work, a lot of beautiful work. And so we will be visiting that with the remainder of time at the end of class. Everybody cool with that? Thumbs up?
Yeah.
Okay. Nyla, thumbs down. What? No, I'm just kidding.
What, thumbs down?
Just kidding. Great. So let's just go ahead. I'm just going to quickly go through that handout and just talk about what we're going to be working on, about what it is we are looking for when we're dealing with reflections. There's a couple big keys in there. Let's just go ahead and pop over to the Padlet page. Everybody sees our Padlet page here. It's just the handout. All right, so fundamentals of painting water, part 1, general thoughts, finding the flow. Water, those elusive shimmering depths that can make or break your masterpiece. So again, with water, we're dealing with so many elements. We're dealing with the fact that it's reflective, the fact that it's clear, the fact that it has depth, the fact that it has movement. It's just, I understand why it's tricky. It's definitely an opportunity to really work on our observation skills, to go, okay, I have these ideas. I, know kind of what water is and what it does. But if you just really sit back and then observe what's happening, it will really help you. A lot of times we overthink it too much. I had multiple students ask if they should do the, like if you're doing transparency in the water, if you should paint the thing underneath and then glaze in, the water, the color of the water, all that over the top. That is a technique that works for a lot of artists. But if you're more of an alla prima, or, you're painting wet into wet, alla prima meaning all at once, you want to start and finish the painting, then that's not going to work, right? Glazing. So if you're doing a plein air painting, you're probably, unless you took out acrylics, did that, and then built your oils over the top. So what you want to do is actually really observe, like, what is happening in this area, not what is water, not, you want to let go of a lot of the science of it and just say, what is this color? What is this value? What is this quality of the edge that I'm seeing? Is it soft? Is it hard? And that's really going to help you. A lot of people will ask, like, what's the color of the ocean? What's the color of water? What's the color of this? I don't want you to think like that. I do not want you to think formulaically. I want you to observe. Think abstractly. I'm just looking at this spot and I'm painting this color, this value, and this edge quality. All right. So the art of layering. So this is the first one where a lot of people do ask about, a glazing in, which again can totally work, but you're going to be spending a lot more time, weeks probably, on your painting to let the individual layers dry. All right. Remember these 3 golden rules: fat over lean. So that's what I was talking about. You want the thin layers will dry faster, and thin can mean just the amount of oil that's in it, or if you paint like I do, I will just kind of scrub my paints in the beginning, or wipe away to make sure that I don't have a lot of oil or moisture. I don't have a lot of wet paint there. So fat over lean, thick over thin, and slow drying over fast drying. If anybody has a clearer, better way to say that, I would love to hear it, because I always feel like it's a little bit confusing. But if you ever have paintings that are cracking, that is most likely the reason, is that the layers underneath are staying wet and the layers on top are drying quicker. When painting reflections in water, the colors and values undergo several changes. Colors become less saturated. In water reflections, colors are generally less vibrant than in real life. And I should have reworded that. In real life, I meant than the thing that they're reflecting. Even white must be toned down, often requiring a mix of gray to achieve the correct value. So if you have bright, bright white clouds that are reflecting in the water, they're generally not going to be that bright, bright white. Or if you have snow that's really bright. And again, just as a general rule, try to avoid white out of the tube on almost any spot on my painting. I'm always looking a little bit deeper, seeing what colors I can see in those bright areas. Values shift towards the middle. This is one of the biggest things that has helped me to make water more convincing. Sometimes when I'm painting from a photo, the photo does not convey this fact. And I'll try to copy the photo and it's just not reading. Like, again, viewers will accept photos as being true, but a lot of times when you paint it, it just doesn't look right. So values shift toward the middle. All right. The darks in the reflections are often lighter than the actual object, and the lights are darker. This means that both ends of the value spectrum are brought closer to the middle. That sentence I wrote and rewrote, trying to figure out, again, just clarity on that, because I think that that's really confusing for a lot of people. But what you want to think is just that mid-value gray, the darks are coming towards it and the lights are coming towards it. So both colors shift toward the middle. Does that make sense to you guys? Yeah, I know it's confusing. But there's a lot of times where, yeah, I'll do my reflections and, you know, all of a sudden the lights are too light. They're lighter than the sky or lighter than the thing they're reflecting, and my darks will be darker. And again, that the camera will trick you. So if you are looking back at your painting and just going, man, something's not working here, that I almost want to say it's like a trick. Like, it will feel better if you shift your values towards the middle.
Michael,
Even if it's just a touch. Yeah, Michelle?
I wonder if you happen to have handy that value scale where it goes from dark to white, and that might be helpful if someone has.
But are we filming, by the way?
I believe so.
And there's some kind of a warning, a third-party app has changed your luminaries
I
resolution.
have that.
Does everybody see that, Michael? do you-
Yes.
Here.
And you can't click it out.
Well, it's gone.
Well,
Yeah.
now we're seeing your screen full, and it went away when we went to your screen full, which is just covered up gray.
But it was something that was giving you a message about some configuration that I think you did to the cameras or something.
Let's go back to share screen and see if it pops back up. All right, are we back at
There it
Yeah,
is.
it's here.
It probably is the fact that he's using an iPhone.
Yeah. You
All
saw-
right.
You
You
just
saw-
click on it, just say I got it, and it'll go.
He did.
Yeah, he did.
All right.
No idea.
Thank you for that.
Just change from laptop.
And people should mute.
Yeah.
Yes, it is recording. Thank you, Cheryl. Back to that. Yeah, and I will share. I was trying to pull up that value thing, but I'm not finding it really quickly, Michelle. But if you guys think about like the 10 values from white to black. So your real dark darks, you know, the ones that maybe 10 are gonna get a little bit lighter, maybe a 9. Oh, there we go. Okay, Karen's got it. You guys see Karen over there? Let me do stop share again. Hold it up for a little longer.
I see it. There you
There we
are.
go. Okay, so if we imagine the shadows in the trees, sorry, Karen, you got to hold it until your arms fall off. If you can imagine the shadows underneath the trees being underneath that darkest value, and then maybe the bright white of the clouds above them in the lightest value up in the sky above the water, not the reflection. When you come down to the reflection, the darks will probably move one value in towards the middle. Boom, nailed it. Thank you. Vanna White, you're killing it here. And then the clouds will get a tiny bit darker and go towards the middle. Does that make sense? Good idea, Michelle, having a little bit of a demonstration there. Perfect. Thanks. You can put your arms down.
Thank you.
Karen, you have such a great smile.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yes, she does.
All right, so we're back to the Padlet again. So the same thing happens, yeah, with the colors a little bit is what I kind of think of as colors and values go towards the middle. This is really going to help you. It seems kind of basic for some of you, like, oh yeah, obviously. But for others of us, myself very much included, is I'll find that I play up the colors and the reflections because I get so excited by them, right? They're just so interesting and they're moving and they're dancing around. And yeah, so at the end of the painting, oftentimes I have to go back and just kind of neutralize them a little bit, either the colors or the values. All right, the other thing is details are minimized unless it is the stillest of still ponds, which really hurts me to paint. Those are tough. Where you have to make, you know, as above as below, right? And match, especially if you have like a lot of branches or really fine grasses. So I'll often just pretend there is a little bit of a breeze here and there's a little bit of a movement. Sure, gives me a little more leeway. So details are minimized in reflections. The intricate details of the actual object are often lost. Instead, only the basic shapes and colors necessary to convey the reflection. Hard edges are softened because water is fluid. It tends to soften the edges of reflection. Hard edges are rare and should be avoided to maintain the illusion of reflection. I wasn't sure to put that line in there because sometimes a nice crisp line, and sometimes you'll have still parts of the water that aren't getting the wind or the current. So just be aware of that. And again, a lot of times when my water just feels too crisp, too clear, I'll just kind of bring a, you know, little bit, I'll brush a dry brush across it or a soft brush across it and just kind of soften those peripheral edges where the, you know, the sky reflection and the tree reflection meet. And it just kind of helps it to lay down, calm down, and it just feels more like water. Yeah, so this is kind of one of those tough ones where, you know, I want you guys to observe and paint as closely as possible if that's where you're wanting to go. You can sure learn a lot that way. But oftentimes there's funny things like shadows on like flat surfaces and things like that, where there's little tricks that really help it to lay down. And with water and reflections, just slightly softening those edges, or sometimes they're really soft edged. And what I was talking about with shadows is like if you have a shadow across like a sidewalk or a road, and all of a sudden the shadow is just feeling really hard and wants to stand up on you. I had this happen in both of my last plein air classes I just taught. I just said, well, let's just soften the farthest edge from us on the shadow. And it's a weird optical illusion. All of a sudden that shadow just lays down. It doesn't feel like an object on top of the sidewalk. It feels like a shadow on the sidewalk. And I don't know why having the back edge softer than the front edge, but it really works. So there are little tricks and gimmicks, if you will, in painting that can help sometimes. So just wanted to bring that up. Reflections are darker than the sky. Water absorbs more light since it is denser than air. Therefore, the sky's reflection on the water will almost always appear darker than the sky itself. So that's just kind of a scientific way to think about it, if that helps.
Really useful, Mike. Michael, do you have any hints of like the reflection length? Like sometimes I find like some reflection of like a tall object is like really small, and some reflection like really like tall in height. So I don't know the rule behind it.
Yeah,
Um,
so it is according to how close that object is. So if you have a tall tree, but it's further away,
mhm.
then a short tree or a short bush even, or even grasses sometimes will appear taller than that faraway tree. And
Right.
it just depends on the distance. So if you, let's just say you have a skyscraper that's in the distance and you have a house in the foreground, right? And you're painting like a swimming pool or something, right? That building is going to appear, or most likely won't even appear. What I can see oftentimes in people who are kind of making up reflections is they'll have trees in the foreground, or let's even say grasses, then trees, and then a mountain in the distance. Oftentimes that mountain will not even appear in the reflection
Hmm.
because it's far away. So that's where observing really will come in handy. You can't just take the top and flip it. Like there's times where I have this beautiful line of trees and I'm like, it'd make this a better painting is if I had some water. So what I'll do on Photoshop is I will just take the top, copy it, flip it, and put it on the bottom. But I have to be aware I have to make it up because it's just copying the top and the bottom, right? And it doesn't work because any tree, the closer things are bigger, the further things are smaller, and you're going to see less and less of them. And you also have to think about, and I have that here in a little bit, is the angle that you're looking at the water. The higher this is so confusing, you guys. I apologize. This is a ton of information. It's in the notes. This is why we're doing it for 2 weeks. The higher you are up above the water, the less the objects behind it are going to show up. So if you're in an airplane flying over a clear lake with, still water, what reflections are you going to see in that? The clouds, the sky, pretty much only. The trees you'll see, above, and then you're going to see in the reflection kind of the underside of the trees, right? When I take photos at the cabin, a lot of times I will take the photos with my camera held as high above my head as I can, and then at eye level, and then I will also get to where the camera is just right at water level. And it's so different, the reflections, the ripples in the water look so different. Everything is so really paying attention. Again, last week when I was teaching one of my plein air classes, one of the ladies had a really hard time making the water lay down. She really wanted to make this kind of big expanse and really, and she's like, I walked over and I'm like, oh, so you're in an airplane looking at the water, and kind of mortified her, but she'd done such a pretty painting. She's like, what do I do? And it was watercolor, so she couldn't really change it. So I just said, you know what, just pretend you're in an airplane and let's finish this beautiful painting and then do another one, right? Not because with watercolors you just can't really change it. So you just want to make sure that your perspective is right when you're doing it. So when doing reflections, when doing water, when doing like receding banks, like one bank is closer than another bank, and or a creek going back into space. Linda Camarada and I have had lots of issues about like the water wanting to go uphill or downhill where it's just flat water. So it's tricky. One thing that I think about often is that angles in the foreground will be a little bit stronger, and then they get flatter and flatter. The angles of the bank where it meets the water will get flatter and flatter as they recede into space. Oh man, Michelle, I hope you're writing all these notes down. We need to add this. It's going to be a 5-page document by the time we're done.
Say that again. Say that
Michelle,
last.
I hope you're writing this down. It's going to be a 5-page.
No, the one
Angles-
before that.
Angles in the foreground are stronger, and as they recede, they get flatter or I would say maybe like more horizontal, right? As they get
Perfect. Yeah,
into
thank you.
background.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. Yeah, are you guys enjoying me reading this and then explaining it?
Yeah,
I feel like we're taking a lot of time here, but I think it is really important.
it's very,
Okay.
It would be also good if we could add some example alongside description. Sorry, not for today.
Yeah, no. Let me,
future. I'm a visual person, so
100%, we all are. Yeah, that's, right now I have the whole class opened up, so I can't see my other screen. Let me see if I have. All right. So this is basically a image at eye level, right? So you can see that it's almost the same height. In fact, if you guys take your fingers and measure the top of the tree in the middle there, this kind of tall guy, and figure out where the bank is, right? Where the land is meeting the water, and measure that. And then take that same measurement and bring it down, and you'll see that as above, as below, almost the same height. If I took this picture from above my head, like held the camera as high as I could, or jumped on the back of a truck, or climbed a fence and then took the photo, that reflection will most likely be shorter. If I take it from closer to the water level, the reflection gets longer. I'm trying to see if I have examples. So here again, eye level. So as above, as below, the reflections do appear a tiny bit longer. So maybe I'm a little bit below, maybe I'm squatting down just a touch here.
I love that tree. It's so cool with the roots.
Yeah, I got it right before it walked off, so it was good.
I think a class in perspective someday would be really helpful.
I know. Yeah, that's almost drawing, but yeah, and I should learn how to do perspective too. That'd probably be good for me.
Is that something that'll go in design and everything for the fall?
Let's try to. So let me close these down. I'm going to go to, I think I have a whole reference section of the cabin since I paint it so much. All right, so here's like some views of the cabin. So again, almost eye level. The reflections are almost mirrored as far as size. So when I'm painting reflections like this, I will like take my ruler or something and line that up just so I know that, the shapes are the same as above below. You get this little bit of ripple. I love this picture. I just love how the sun is reflecting in the ripples of the water behind the canoe. I love this, like you can see the movement where it's, the canoe was here a long time ago, so the ripples are moving out. Like there's a lot to learn here. Here's a good example too. You see that, well, no, the sun is, you don't know where it is above. It's just blasting out the sky. I'm trying to see if I have any examples where I changed my eye level. This one's really dark. Maybe this
Well,
one
if
here.
you're up on a cliff, like if you have a coastal picture, maybe.
Yeah. So your reflections will be shorter oftentimes as you go up. So here's down below where I'm holding the camera pretty close to the water. I'll do this a lot of times because what it does is it really plays up the darkness of the water because it's reflecting the dark of the sky, because I do a lot of sunrise, sunset paintings. And I really find that having this dark here really helps the water to feel like it's coming towards us, right? Here's an example, but you still see how the water gets darker as it comes a little bit closer. I'm standing on a floating dock, so you can see I'm making a little bit of ripples. So, I probably wouldn't add that in the painting because that doesn't quite make sense unless I wanted to call it standing on a floating dock at the cabin at sunset. It doesn't make sense. I'm really trying to see if I have, here's another one, but with really, really, you know, foggy fog, really hard to photograph.
Michael, do you hold the camera upside down to get the lower level photographs, or do you lay on a blanket or something?
I just squat down and then held the camera down below me on the edge. It's a little bit scary. Like, here's some really old ones that I don't even know, is that a dead bug on there or something? But I really like the graphic quality of this little series here. I love this one. I've painted it a number of times. And so I love when the land like this, this might actually be a fun one for some of you who want to learn a little more about fog and stuff, because fog with the white boy method's a lot of fun as well. And you can make this any color you want. I apologize. I'm just grabbing my favorite pictures and putting them on my computer from my phone. Oh, here's a great one. Okay, so here's the black and white. So Hassan talking about like, why would these trees, which are much taller than the canoe, be much shorter in the reflection, right? So the canoe is much closer to us. The trees are all the way across the lake, right? Mm-hmm. So is that, I mean, that's a kind of rudimentary example of that. This one might help. So here we have, you know, grasses are closer, grasses are further away. You also have this lit bunch of leaves here that are reflecting, you know, over the darks of this. So as again, things are further away, they get smaller, as do their reflections. And the closer they are, the bigger the reflections. Hope that helps a little bit. I've always wanted to paint something along this line as well. Probably not having all the boats and stuff, but yeah.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
This one.
I opened a lot of pictures. But yeah, to just go out and observe it or go out and take pictures, it's really going to be one of the best ways that you're going to learn what you can do, what, you know, what works, what doesn't work. Yeah, I love this one too. I don't know if I'll ever paint it or not. It seems so dreary and sad, but I just love the light. All right, exploring color temperature. As artists, we must attune to the subtleties of color temperature, observe the interplay of warm and cool tones within your reflections. Cooler, darker hues often convey depth. I kind of showed you that in the, you know, the darkness of the water here. You know, it just feels darker, it feels colder. So just kind of being aware of that, if it's something you can use. Darker hues often convey depth, suggesting the vastness of deeper waters, while warmer tones may hint at the shallowness of a pool or the vibrant hues of the sunset. Let me see if I can find really quickly. Oh, desktop. Where is desktop? So not one of my paintings. This is Michael B. Carras. You see the warmth of the, you know, the objects underneath. If you're doing like a shore, you know, like the shallows of the water, often you will go from a warmer out to a cooler. So just kind of looking and thinking about what is under that water, right? That might be causing it. You got the cast shadows, you got the blue of the sky, but you also have the warmth. This is kind of probably a brownish, you know, water a little bit. Looks like it could be like along the Mississippi or somewhere. So you want to pay attention to those gradations. This is one of the ones that was in the handout. This is a watercolor, but you can really see the change of the warmth as it's going back. Plus the reflections of the sky above the objects. So yeah. Capturing the dance of distortion. Water is not a static mirror, but a dynamic, distorting reflection with every moment. Embrace this fluidity in your work. It can drive you absolutely mad. When I was with the one of the plein air classes, the wind was picking up and then it would die down, pick up and then die down. So you had to decide, am I painting clearer reflections or am I painting all the ripples and the movement of the wind across the water? Embrace this fluidity in your work. Let your brushworks be guided by the water's rhythms, allowing them to ebb and flow across the canvas, capturing the essence of water in motion, if that's what you want. Next week, we will be starting actually playing with currents and clearer water. So that'll become even more tricky. The elements of the interplay of elements. This talks about what's underneath. The world beneath the water surface is filled with various elements that shape its appearance. Rocks, sand, and vegetation all alter the color and texture of reflections. Consider these submerged details as you paint, for they are integral to the authenticity of the water scenes. In fact, when I was out at the cabin, there was a bunch of grass just starting to grow in the soil under the water. Like the grass was probably only 3 or 4 inches, but it really made everything look very different. To paint it authentically would have been a real trick. So yeah, just being aware of that perspective. Here we go. And its impact on reflections. Our viewpoint can dramatically alter the visual narrative of water reflections. A low angle may capture an expanse of reflective beauty, while a higher angle or a higher vantage point might reveal more of the water's texture and surface tension and less of the reflection. Experiment with perspective to find the most compelling composition. Conveying mood and atmosphere. A scene's ambience is delicate balance between influence by time of day, weather, and season. So that's why there's just no formula. People are just like, how do I paint water? I'm like, man, water is so many things. Like takes on. So these factors are not mere backdrops, but active participants in setting the emotional tone of your painting or the story. Use them to infuse your work with mood and atmosphere. The art of patience and layering. For those of you who want to play with glazing or, building up your painting slowly. Oil painting is a medium that rewards patience. You can build your reflections layer by layer, allowing each to dry thoroughly. This systematic approach affords you greater control over the outcome, ensuring a painting that resonates with depth and realism. A lot of times I will attempt to do my paintings, fast and all at once, but I'm always welcoming that I can revisit them and alter them. And sometimes glazing or building up layers, lightening or darkening areas, whatever it is. And here's some ways that you can go about doing that. And I will be showing you these today when I do finish the painting from last week. Scumbling. So scumbling is kind of like glazing, but you're not adding any medium. It's just a dry brush with paint and you're just kind of scrubbing it on. So scrub or scumble dry or semi-dry paint across the surface of your water reflections. This creates exciting textures and adds visual interest. Experiment with different brush strokes to achieve the desired effect. I use scumbling a lot. I love it in my skies. I love it. I do it with fog a lot. Scumbling is a great trick. So just sometimes not adding medium is great. And if you're wanting to glaze, but you actually want to lighten an area, like add white into the mix, then I often will suggest scumbling versus glazing. It just seems to read better and feel better. Negative painting, so it's thinking negative shapes. Instead of directly painting the water reflection, paint around it to define its shape. So oftentimes, like, how do I paint this tree in the water? I'll just look at the reflection of the sky instead and look to those shapes. The negative space technique allows you to create intricate reflections by emphasizing the surrounding elements. So you don't only want to think tree, tree, tree. You can think, now I can think, what's the sky or the lightest area, and paint those shapes. It's a little more abstract way of thinking, but a lot of times that really helps, especially when we're painting ripples or, odd, almost abstracted shapes in the water. The other thing I think about all the time when I'm painting water is literally just, I am painting an abstract painting, right? It's not, it has shapes and forms, but really just thinking abstractly. The dry brush technique, a little bit like scumbling here. Use a brush with minimal or no medium and pigment to create texture and detail. Drag the dry brush across the canvas to achieve rough textures, fine lines, and lifelike details. These techniques add realism and depth to your painting. One of the paintings that's behind me in the studio, I was just doing that with like some leaves and some grasses, just to add a little more texture in the foreground and a little more depth. Layering and glazing, so I'm getting a little repetitive here. Building up multiple layers of transparent washes enhances the depth and luminosity of your painting. I'm also doing that in one of the paintings behind me. Each layer contributes to the rich color and a captivating final piece. Glazing also allows subtle shifts in tone and color, creating a luminous quality in specific areas. Wet on wet blending, that's what I've been making you guys do because I'm only giving you a week. So now with 2 weeks, if you start right after the first class, you have opportunities to get back in and do some of this scumbling and glazing because your underpainting will be dry. Wet on wet blending, this technique allows seamless transitions between colors. Apply wet paint on top of another damp layer to create harmonious blends, right? You guys understand that? If you put two wet paints beside each other, you can kind of blend them together where they meet. Experiment with textures. So we were doing that with the palette knife and the flat brush, and I used my paper towel, I used Q-tips, I used all sorts of things. In fact, sometimes having like a really bad paper towel, not like a soft one, but like a crumbly one that's not actually very absorbent, can make some really interesting textures where you kind of crumple it up. So I use that sometimes to really create interesting shapes and trees and branches or, grasses. Practice and experimentation are key. Observe real life reflections, study light and the physics of water. That was long. That's like the most class lesson-y thing I've done in a while there.
Yeah, each point can be a single project.
Right, yeah. So I have this written down that it's by Ignat. Maybe it is. He doesn't paint like this very often. I've not seen this style from him. But what I really like is how he's just really diffusing. You know what I mean? Like you almost just can't tell where the reflection ends in some areas, and in some areas are much crisper in his reflections. He also has the, up above quite loose. It's a very stylized painting, but I really like that feel. See if
Who
I
is
another. I have it down as sorry, the Zoom screen is in front of it. I can't see. Ignat, IGNAT, and then his last name is IGNATOV. I don't know if that's his real name or if that's just a misunderstanding. It sounds like a Russian name. I showed examples of this person's work. I don't love a lot of his paintings, completely, but I really like the playfulness in his reflections and how he really is pushing and experimenting. And I love like these fully abstracted areas that you just really don't know what's going on. So a lot of times when I, grab references and stuff, doesn't mean I love the painting, but there's just elements of it that I'm like, oh, wow, that's a lot of fun. That's really interesting. What if I brought, this is Ian Roberts. He has classes online as well. And I love the very abstract quality of this, right? He put his horizon line way above. So this painting is about the reflections, right? I really enjoyed that. I love a little bit of ripples. It's almost a perfectly clear. And I'm going to
You also see the softened edges like you talked about on the closer branches near the shore.
Right, and that's almost not even softer. That's just more ripply. And
Well, I
then
mean
they
at the
actually-
shoreline. See where it's softer, the dark green? Up, right there.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. And you can even see he, like this branch isn't hardly mimicked here, but you get away with it. Like I really like this picture. I really like the idea of the abstraction in this. I'm trying to find an old thing of mine. Man, how old? So yeah, I'm looking in my way back machine here. These are really old paintings. I think this is from like 2006. But you can really see here, it's just about the shallowness of it. You know, the kids are standing on the sand with a little bit of current, a little bit of movement, and then just depending on the angle of the ripples, they're picking up sky a little bit if they're facing away. So ripples that are facing towards us are seeing the sand, and you also have a little bit of movement. And I'm trying to find one specific painting. Hopefully I don't waste too much time.
That's really good.
Thanks. They used to be good.
Now you're better.
Now I'm better. Thanks. Yeah, I don't want to waste too much time looking for this painting. I'll add it to my thing, but it's just a picture of canoes, but they're reflecting in the water, but most 80-90% of the painting is actually about the reflections of the sky. And it was just such an interesting challenge. And I was so proud of myself back then for seeing this really abstracted angle just by holding, again, the camera up high. Ooh. Last little screen I'm going to look through, and then I'm going to give up. And all right, sorry guys, didn't mean to waste your time there. Close that up, close this up, and let's go ahead and take a short break. I'm going to jump to the easel, and we're going to get working on doing some glazes, and we'll talk a little bit about reflections while doing this. We'll get back, and then we'll do the finishing of the other painting. Everybody good?
Yeah.
All good.
There we go. Okay, great. We'll see you guys at 10:35, 5 minutes here.